Did you watch the interview Candace did recently with
Rabbi?
the rabbi? I think which rabbi? You have a clip of it?
Two rabbis.
There's Rabbi
I'm talking about
no, it wasn't Rabbi
Shmuley.
Barkley.
No,
This is
Barkley.
Rabbi
It was
Barkley.
Barkley. Can you play
Not
this
Charles
clip?
Barkley, but
Can you
this
play go ahead and play this clip, Rob?
Just so the reference, the backstory is that this rabbi is accusing Candace Owens of calling Rabbi Shmuley Boteach's daughter a hag. So that's the setup.
Right.
A hag, which, okay.
How dare you go into the misogynistic, the anti-Semitic trope of his hag daughter, something used throughout the late 18th and early through the early 20th century.
Sorry. Hag is now anti-Semitic?
So that is a term of his hag daughter that goes back into the witches of Eastern Europe. Why did you have to call her a hag daughter?
Just
Tell
to
me
be
that.
clear, because she's a witch. I think she's a witch. That's not because she's Jewish. I would call someone a hag of any color. I think she's a witch. What they have done over the last 2 years, I believe his daughter is a hag. I said that because that's what I believe. You may disagree with me on that, but to say that that's anti-Semitic is ridiculous. I would call any person a hag.
Candace?
Well, here's my thing. And I watched this entire thing. It was really, really difficult because, mind you, I don't think Candace Owens hates Jewish people, but to like, for instance, if I called Adam just off the cuff, I'm like, you old ass hag. For somebody to have to for somebody to have to go all the way back to whatever century that he's talking about and be like, what you're saying is anti-Semitic. It's like, I felt, this is me personally, Dave, like he was searching for something because I don't know if you guys know Rabbi Shmuley. I don't know how it is in the Jewish community. The guy's a rabbi, which is technically, holy. She's like, he sells butt plugs and dildos in a business with his daughter. Candace thinks it's not good. In my opinion as well, I don't think anybody in the religious sect should be in business with their daughter of all people selling sex toys. That's the angle she took to say that it's anti-Semitic and that she doesn't like Jewish people. I think it's just reaching and looking for something to just label her, which I think is dangerous because like she's not. If you saw, did you see this thing, Adam? Did you see the interview with
I did.
the rabbi?
And I'll respond when you want.
I'm saying, do you think Candace Owens saying that Rabbi Shmuley, who he and his daughter have been attacking Candace for over 2 years, that her calling the daughter a hag, in her mind, she's like, yeah, this is anti-Semitic. Let me go for that.
Well, I'm going to let Dave respond as well, but I'll just say, look, I've been called, and shout out to the chat and all our friends out there, I've been called every name in the book for Jew, for this, for that. It is what it is. I believe in free speech. Say all you want. Inciting violence, sorry, guys, I don't play that game, nor should we. I don't know this guy or the rabbi, but I watched the interview. She said her words, I believe, like, any Orthodox person, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Mormon, whether you're Muslim, they have kids. They believe in having lots of kids.
Of course.
So it's fun to say butt plugs and dildos. No, they have oils and lotions and potions to help keep the spark alive in your relationship. Cool. I don't really care. They did an interview with your old friend Cenk Uygur and Rabbi Shmuley, and they did that. Right. And look, and he's like, yeah, I don't really give a shit about this. The reality is, let's get to the actual point here. Whether his daughter owns some sort of sexual orientation,
they own it.
Whatever it is, I don't care. That to me is so the most irrelevant thing here. It's the moral equivalency of what Israel defending itself versus terrorism. That to me is what.
But going to this though, what her comments about Shmuley has nothing to do with anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I think
it's just her. By the way, Candace is the one that went to Jerusalem when they opened the embassy. She's not anti-Jewish. The fact that guy could take that hag comment and go back to like, that's like me sneezing right now and Adam going, Hachu, and you go, oh, you said Jew. That's anti-Semitic.
You did.
Yes,
I'll say last thing, and then I'm going to let Dave do his thing. What I will say this, there's people that overreach, and that on all sides, but especially on the Jewish side of things I'm talking about right now. Guys, my friends, not every criticism of Israel or Jews is anti-Semitic.
I'm happy you said that.
I'm sorry, but a lot of it is.
Yeah, no, there's a lot, but this is reaching for something that's
I agree.
Not there.
I don't even the hag thing going to the witches.
Did you even know that? You're Jewish.
No, but that's where you get reaching.
I called my grandmother an old hag. I didn't know it was anti-Semitic.
Last point, after the Holocaust, which people are still alive from the Holocaust.
Had 7 last points. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Well, that Jews are paranoid, and that's what's going on.
Putting aside the specifics of that clip for a second, I know it would be extremely good for the internet and for the warfare that we're all involved in for me to go after Candace right now. But let me just say that Candace and I were very good friends for a long time. I was at her wedding. She was at my house only a year and a half ago helping us pick out strollers for our kids who weren't even born yet. In large part, I kind of discovered her when she was known as Red Pill Black on YouTube. And I brought her on my show. We did a thing called YouTube Week where we take little YouTubers. When I sat down with her in my house, I actually didn't know her name until 20 seconds before we started. I said, I think you're Red Pill Black, but what's your real name? She ended up staying at my house for like 10 hours that night. We've had her and her husband over for dinner many, many times. So in this case, I don't think that I'm just not in the place anymore where I want to be involved in the firestorm of burn everything down as it relates to her and everything else. I would say just on Israel specifically, what I've heard her say, she seems largely confused about a bunch of issues, and I hope that she will talk to people who know a little bit more about some of this stuff than she is. You know, there was a video where she was talking about the Muslim quarter in the old city of Jerusalem, the implication being that Israel keeps all of the Muslims in one quarter. And it's like the Muslim quarter, which has existed from the British Empire to the Ottoman Empire, till we can go back to the old temple in Jerusalem. Israel, which there is no apartheid, where 20% of the population are Israeli Arabs, most of whom are Muslim, and some of whom are on the Supreme Court and the rest of it. I think she's a little confused about some of the things, but I think, well, I hope you heard the overriding part, which is that I don't want to make it personal with her. I don't really consider us friends anymore, but that's just like a nature of the reality of the thing that we're all in.
What do you think about the dynamics of her and Ben at Daily Wire, where, you know, Ben made those comments at that one event and was recorded and went to the public and, you know, I don't agree with this. And obviously tensions were high. What are your thoughts about that dynamic?
I think there's many layers to this. Let's just remove the Israel layer for a second. There's a pure business layer to it, which is that Candace has a contract with Daily Wire. I know nothing. I truly know nothing about the nature of the contract or how long it lasts or how much it's for or anything else. But it seems fairly obvious to me she wants to leave the Daily Wire. And I would say there's a little bit of the Tucker thing here too, which Tucker is building a network. He now has the Tucker Carlson network. He's gone after Ben, I would say, in a fairly unfair way. Repeatedly going after Ben's motives, saying he doesn't love America, things like that.
Who? Tucker.
Tucker, yeah.
Right.
Ben has repeatedly, he did it on my show, he's done it on his show, said, I'll be happy to sit down with you. I've offered to moderate it, but you could moderate it. They don't even need a moderator. I think it would be a good conversation to have. You can have difference of opinion on, say, foreign policy or any political issue without going after someone's motives or saying they don't love America, that sort of thing. But at a business level, Tucker now has a network that is in competition. He's building a network now that is in competition with the Daily Wire. So it would be pretty great to take out Ben Shapiro. That's just reality.
You think that's what it is?
I think that there is an element of that. I'm removing just the specifics around Israel or politics for a second and saying that and I think Candace, to her own, whether she wants to join Tucker or do something else after, start the Candace Owens network, whatever it might be. I think there are realities outside of just like the political fights. And that's why in this case, it actually, for me, it has more to do with that we were friends for a while. I'm trying to honor and respect that. We were quite good friends, not, you know. And I think she sees an opportunity here and she's going for it.
Why would Tucker see Ben as competition though?
Because if you're building a right-leaning network, Daily Wire is number one, right? So you go for number one. You're trying to take out number one. I can't say that for sure. And again, this is something I've said on my show. I would gladly sit with both of them and discuss it. I've had both of them on my show, obviously, repeatedly. But I think there is some reality there. If Tucker's going, well, what is the new right? What is the future of the right?
You think Tucker's just doing that to Ben because
Not just. I think there are legit political differences. But think about it. If you're going, oh, this guy's got the online network, that's the right online network, and now I'm trying to build a network, it would be pretty damn good if I could irreparably wound him. That's just reality.
That you would only do that if a guy is ahead of you. Do you put Ben ahead of Tucker?
Oh, Well, in terms of business, absolutely. Well, yes, I do. Actually, since Tucker has, I think.
Wait, let me get that. I want to ask this, very important for you. For me, I want to hear what you're going to say. So you're saying to me, post Tucker leaving Fox, and even previous to Tucker leaving Fox, who had more influence in America, Tucker amongst conservatives or Ben?
Before leaving Fox, I would say it was pretty close to call. Pretty close to call. Not in our world, not in the online world. I get it. In the online world, it's all about the online people. But Tucker had a huge amount of influence when he was on Fox. It's a little hard to say how much his influence is now. That's not a shot at Tucker, by the way. I see on X, he has gajillion views on everything. We don't know exactly how they're quantifying views if you just skip past it and all that. I know you take the counter on this. I'm not even saying that.
I'm not taking a counter. I like both guys. I'm not a
No. In terms of influence post Fox, right? You would say his influence is way greater post Fox, right?
Yeah, no, there's two different things. There's the let's isolate concerns. The isolate concerns of, Ben, the CEO hat, the Israel hat, the conservative hat. He put Israel 1, conservative 2, Daily Wire 3. That's just when he did that in that event, when he called out Candace, he went Israel, conservative, a Jewish audience. Then he went CEO, Candace, part of this network.
He's not the CEO, and he hasn't been the CEO
co-founder,
for at least
co-founder. But even when people think about Daily Wire, they don't think about Jeremy Boring. They think about Ben Shapiro. Right. We know Jeremy's the operator. We had him on. We had a very good conversation with him. But you think Ben. You don't think,
the optics of it,
I guarantee you, if we did a poll right now and you ask who is the CEO, they would say Ben Shapiro when I ask you the question. Okay? Right. So you have a big responsibility because a big part of Daily Wire's success is Ben. Ben is a behemoth of an influence. But in regards purely to Tucker versus Ben, to me, you think Tucker doesn't have the kind of influence since he left Fox as Ben does?
No. That's not exactly what I said. I think it's hard to quantify
I don't think
Tucker's
it is.
Influence is.
Can you put up Chartable? Pull up Chartable. I don't think it is because, and by the way, when you go to Twitter, I agree with you because some of the stuff on Twitter are like, 400 million views. Well, it's not really fun. Then on YouTube, it does 50 million.
There are 350 million Americans. They're telling us things.
Can you go up and type in Tucker? Just type in Tucker in that if you can. And does Tucker's show come on? It should come on. You know what? Just type in Joe Rogan. Type in Joe Rogan. And right there, Joe Rogan Experience. And if you can go to Apple, go to Spotify Podcast, Top America Podcasts. Just click on the first one. There you go. Number 1 is Rogan. 2 is, I don't even know.
It's a murder.
3 is.
Ghost.
Right. Crime.
Tucker's 3. Now go to Apple. And by the way, and then keep going down. Huberman, Balin, you got Mel, you got Call Her Daddy, you got all these guys that you're going, right?
Yeah. This is Spotify? Is that what we're looking at? Right?
I'll go to Apple as well. Lex, you got all these guys, right? You don't see.
I know that guy.
But no, what I'm saying is you don't see, there's Candace, there's Jordan. Okay, so now go back on Chartable and go to Apple, okay? And on any given day, Joe's always number 1 on like a golf score. But obviously, Apple has different kind of algorithms. Keep going lower, keep going lower, keep going lower. You got Huberman. Ben is there, 18. Go a little lower, little lower, little lower. On the Apple side, keep going lower. Does Tucker even put his stuff on Apple?
There he is.
There it is.
Click on that. Click on that. Click on that real quick. Okay, so now we see the ranking there. Zoom in a little bit. So on Apple, he's 65. On Spotify, he's 3. Okay, so to the Spotify talent, he's way ahead. To the Apple podcast, Ben is way ahead. To the Twitter views, I would say Tucker's way, way ahead on the Twitter views, which Twitter is now getting God knows how many people that are logging on a daily basis. And I would say even on YouTube, if you go compare data. So I'm asking this because I wonder if a part of Candace's dealing with Tucker. So are you speculating that maybe Candace is trying to leave to want to go join Tucker?
I think it's definitely
okay. So that's
possible.
what you're thinking,
or to start her own network.
Okay,
but I think
what
you just illustrated there, in that Tucker was way down below Ben on one of them and above on the other, and also the Daily Wire has a massive subscription game. I don't think Tucker has a subscription.
No, he does not.
So think about it. The Daily Wire is I don't know what their rev is. Maybe I don't even know if it's public, but they're generating a huge amount on that side.
They're real business. Yeah, they're a unicorn. I'm not undermining the business value. I'm talking pure influence, pound for pound, Tucker versus Ben.
Right. So all I'm saying is it's a little hard to quantify. I think we're basically saying they're roughly in the same world, right? Like, you're not giving me anything empirical here that's showing me that Tucker's blown out. They're basically in the same world. But if you're Tucker, and let's say you're 65 that you just showed us on Apple, and Ben was, 18? Well, in the world that they live in, a lot of those people were doing culture podcasts and fashion podcasts. The guy you want to go after is number 18. It's not the girl doing.
I'm trying to really in my mind wrap that around, to see if that's
if
what
you took out the Daily Wire, those subscribers got to go somewhere.
I don't think Tucker's playing that game. You see, for me, I asked three questions.
I don't know.
I asked 3 questions, and I've been asking it for a while. Does Tucker want to be Roger Ailes or Rupert Murdoch? I don't think so. Does Tucker want to be, Rush Limbaugh and, just stay in this, and he wants to have the biggest influence politically on the conservative side? Maybe. Does Tucker want to be Churchill, to go from a journalist to eventually become a president? Maybe. I don't think Tucker's goal is to be a billionaire. I quite frankly don't think he gives a shit about being a billionaire. I think he loves his life. On the other side with Ben, I think Ben is also a crusade guy, and his loyalty is going to be to his community. As a Jew himself, he's going to be supportive of that. But I think since October 6th or 7th, October 7th event that took place, he has proven, hey, zero compromise here. This is where I stand. And in some, areas, it's hurt him, numbers-wise. In some, it's hurt him. Whereas I think Tucker is willing to criticize his own side and the other side. And that's where Tucker's been able to stay a little bit more fluid and gain a little bit from all sides, versus Ben isolated himself a little bit. I may be wrong.
Well, what would you like to hear from Ben that you haven't heard when it comes to this?
No, there's nothing about here. I'm Armenian and I'm Assyrian. Guess what? I'm going to be pro-Armenia, pro-Assyrian.
Yeah. But
I'm also going to give by the way, there's a video. Somebody made a video on Instagram or Twitter, and a Syrian guy told, well, Patrick, I don't like what he said about Assyrians. That's my brand. My brand isn't that I'm just going to sit there and not be critical of even my own mistakes, things I've done in the past, things our community's done. I'm going to be openly talking about it. Our brand isn't to be 100% blinded to whatever. I think when you do that,
but Candace works at the Daily Wire, so she says whatever she wants. So Ben is not the CEO, but she's expressing whatever she wants, and then he's a pundit, right? So he's allowed to.
It's different. I think it's different.
I'm not following.
I think it's different. I think the only reason it's different is, coming from a perspective of somebody that you brought over to you, okay? That, your face, the face, and then how you protect somebody on that side is a different story. And that was.
But are you saying he shouldn't criticize her if he thinks she's wrong about something? The same way that she will criticize. Candace goes after everybody that she disagrees with.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying he shouldn't criticize her. I think what happened post October 7th was in some ways good, in some ways bad. Not as an event, folks. So don't put the good as in it was good for what happened to the people. Zero. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It immediately filtered out people's positions and where they were at, where what was tolerable and what was not tolerable. Can we question some of this? Like, for example, I think I don't know who we had on the podcast when the first time, when this event happened, I'm like, how do you not know
we had,
that the Mossad,
how do
you not know that this was going to be Netanyahu? You mean to tell me you have that good of a intelligence, the best intelligence in the world you guys claim for the longest time, Mossad, that God knows how great you got, but you didn't know what happened? Where, you can't question that right now. Okay.
John Kirby said that.
That was also Charlie Kirk.
John Kirby said now is not the time.
Charlie Kirk that was on.
That's Charlie Kirk. Yeah. No, it was Charlie Kirk because we was at that time and he was like all over the place. Like,
so was there a stand down order? How do we know that was a stand down order?
I think for me, it's the only thing where it's like, okay, cool. So that's where they are. That's where he is. That's where she is. That's where they are. That's where he is. Perfect. What a great way to identify exactly where everybody's at after an event. That's all I'm saying. The event did that. But for me, I don't know if Tucker, like, do I think Rogan's going after anybody? No. Rogan's number one in 94 countries.
Joe.
Number one in 94. Who is Joe going to go after?
Nobody.
You know what a Joe does?
Isn't that making my point? Joe has no need to go after
That's why
Ben.
Tucker doesn't need to. So to me...
But I'm not totally... but he is going after Ben.
I think Tucker's going after ideas. And by the way, please keep this in mind. You have to know this.
To say that Ben is anti-American, you guys can.
No, I didn't say that.
No, that's what he said. That's what he said.
That's not what I'm saying. He can say that. That's his position. I'm not taking that position.
No, I understand.
But position I'm taking here is, and keep this in mind, I have never spoken to Tucker. I've never shook his hands. I've never been at an event. We spoke at the same event, but I left. Yeah. He came. So I've
done all those things with him. I like him. So I'm not.
All I'm saying. So this is not. And I've spent more time with Ben.
Yeah.
Ben has been on my show. I've been on Ben's show. By the way, the experience has been great. I don't have an issue with the guy. Ben is, when he's so focused, even when we were going before the interview, he was on his phone for 20 minutes. He's not really one that's going to be talking too much. He just may be focused about it. But this isn't about one side or the other. This is about the market was able to identify who is who in this conservative base. And I think they're all relevant. I think they're all necessary. But I think the lead dog, there's no question about it. The lead dog in this space amongst the Bens, all the Tuckers, the Jordans, all these guys, it's Tucker.
I'm not so sure of that because Ben has a company that, as you just said, is a unicorn.
As an influencer, not as a business owner, as an influencer. As an influencer, meaning like for example,
Ben also has Jordan on the Daily Wire.
Financially, you could say, Dave Portnoy is like, I'm not talking about money and business and equity. I'm talking purely influence. When it comes down to this, I think it's Tucker one. I think then it's everybody else. And I think Ben is definitely at 2 or 3 spot in that camp.
I don't know that we can fully quantify that. I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way. I don't know that we can fully quantify it, but clearly there's a gray area here that you might be right.
However, can I change it for you? Who's, in my opinion, who's a number one most influential Jewish voice ever since October 7th worldwide?
John Stewart.
Sosnick? Oh, God. I hope it's not John Stewart.
Out of everybody?
John Stewart.
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say. Number one most amongst the Jewish community. You can put Netanyahu in there, Stewart in there, Shapiro in there. You can throw everybody in there. You know who I think is number one?
Who?
I think Ben's number one.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, I think Ben's number one.
Yeah.
I don't even. But
I thought you were going to pull a trick out of your head.
No. But
there.
What I'm saying to you is, I think after October 7th,
it was him every day.
He is bigger than Netanyahu, is what I'm trying to say.
Too.
To me, his voice for that community carries more weight than anybody else. That's all I'm saying.
Can I ask you guys a policy question here? Because I actually think you're both right in a certain context. I think it's not even question as far as influence and notoriety. It's Tucker. It's not even a question. From a business side of things, what he's put together at the Daily Wire, most people don't know Jeremy Boring's name. They think it's Ben and the super team he's put together with Peterson and Walsh and Candace. The third thing that I want to focus on is the policy, though, because this comes down to more policy. Ben, I think, is staying more true to what the Republican Party has meant in the past, whereas Tucker has sort of adopted the MAGA, even though he talks so much trash about Trump, he's sort of adapted sort of the new MAGA policy perspective. And the question of, and this is what I want to get your opinion on, the isolationist perspective versus the interventionist perspective. It's clearly that Tucker has now aligned himself with the non-interventionist camp, the isolationist camp. Candace has basically come under that as well, where the Republican Party used to stand for free trade, peace through strength, taking out our enemies we have to. Now it's no foreign wars, no funding of wars, no free trade. How much of this is a straight up policy debate about intervention?
Well, I would hope that most of it is. My guess is that that's actually not true, but my hope would be that most of it is. As for intervention or not intervention or that kind of thing, what's interesting is Ben has pointed this out repeatedly because Tucker has implied and again, I'm not sitting here as a lawyer for Ben, but Tucker has implied repeatedly that Ben has called for troops on the ground over there and everything else. I was just in Israel. There was not one Israeli, literally not one. I don't think you could Google all day long. I don't think you can find one influential Israeli that has called for troops on the ground. They want the ability to finish a war themselves, and they do need some help with weapons. But the last thing that they want are American troops there, because that will not go well for America. It will not go well for them. It won't go well for the region. Most people post-Boomer are more isolation in general. We've realized that world policing isn't working. Nation building clearly isn't working. My personal belief is that we should have allies who we have a common cause with and we believe in democracy with and have similar values and things of that nature. And Israel, certainly in that part of the world, is obviously that. But that's like a healthy debate to have. That's why, again, I think when Tucker has said, well, Ben is anti-American, or the implication that he wants his children to die, you can find the clip if you want.
Right.
That's where I think he's gone a little bit overboard.
He said, I have military-age children. They're going to send my kids to war.
But
Tucker, none of your kids are going to war. But
Right. And I think that's where it's gotten a little bit sloppy, where perhaps there's a little more of a business angling to it than just policy.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know what Tucker's going to be doing with TCN. I don't know. I don't know if the
I don't know either, but he's calling it a network. It's on the right.
I mean, I don't know what that brand is going to be, and I don't know what they're going to be building.
Has he signed anyone yet?
He's raised $15 million, and he, by the way, everybody and anybody is in talks with him who wants to be a talent, who wants to take their talent somewhere. They're going to have the conversation with what Tucker is doing.
By the way, I will
place.
say one thing that I completely agree with you on related to this is that watching people sort themselves out now, when you get the people who can actually explain what their ideas are and understand history and do it honestly, and that's a very hard part of the pundit class, because everyone's got their own pressures and why they do things, and some people want to fight with pundits more, which is exactly why I just laid out my Candace thing the way it is. I'm past that point in my life and career. I don't want to do that. But the sorting of ideas, when you can really, you have a good sense of what Tucker believes. You have a good sense of what Ben believes. You have a good sense of what I believe and what these guys believe.
Right.
That is good. That is really good. So the fact that has been illuminated to us a little bit more over the past few months, I think is quite good. Doesn't mean that all the other pressures related to business and clicks and everything else don't exist. But I think knowing what people think a little bit more is way better.
For sure. And you know, great. That gets you to say no, yes, absolutely, maybe, sometime, absolutely not. You get to pick and choose and go through the people. That way, that's the marketplace.
Yeah. And I would also say unfortunately related to Israel, because it brings up a lot of old hatreds, and Jews do tend to be a little more sensitive to, genocide than perhaps other groups. That watching a lot of the pundit class just pontificate on a bunch of things that they have no idea about. And I'm not calling anyone out specifically here, but this you see on mainstream, who have no idea of the history, no idea of the British mandate of Palestine. And that a country called Palestine never existed, with a people known as Palestinians who lived in it. And if you look at the Palestinian national soccer team from the 1930s, it was all Jews. And the Palestine Post, which is now the Jerusalem Post, was the Jewish newspaper. And the Arabs used to boycott Palestine because that's where the Jews lived. They have everything so backwards, unfortunately, that it gets harder and harder in a time of algorithms for people to tell the truth.
I'll wrap it up and move to the next story. Tom, did you want to say something?
No, I was going to echo Dave. Go look up at your history. It was massive Jordanian immigration of people who then identified themselves as Palestinians.
Well, there is apartheid in the Middle East. It's in Jordan and Lebanon. Do you know that in Lebanon, you can Google this right now, there are 30 some odd jobs that Palestinians cannot have in Lebanon. There's no job as an Arab in Israel that you can't have. Jordan is run by the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and they have about 60% Palestinians who do not have equal rights as the rest of their citizens. So a lot of this is just confusion, and then I think it's attached now to the fact that Jews are a little sensitive to being exterminated 75 years after the Holocaust.
I'll say this, and we'll move on to the next story. The one thing that has happened in the last 6 months is the likes of Candace, whose show and eyeballs, it's like almost every week she's trending. Yeah. Every single week, Candace is trending. It's not easy to do, by the way. This is a woman that just had her third kid, and doing the show and having the family and all this other stuff. And it's like her husband, you got to go and travel back and visit family there, and you got to come back here, and you got to do this and you got to do that. Her shows exploded. Tucker has obviously been exploding, but even more because he is willing to go on the road, talk to anybody. It almost seems like he's very accessible to anybody. Like he'll get on a plane, go to Romania, and then he'll go to Russia, and then he'll go over here. That takes a lot of work. Most people don't want to do that. And he's got a family, and he's got the kids, and he's got this. So you got to give him respect. So when I watch data and numbers, how the market reacts purely based on data, you'll see that taking place. And I think both of them, the audience is saying, whether they agree or not, they want to hear what Candace has to say. They want to hear what Tucker has to say. And that's very hard to consistently keep. Sometimes you can be hated, but you still keep your audience. Sometimes you can be loved and you still keep your audience. There's people who are loved, but nobody wants to see them anymore. And there are people that are hated that they no longer want to listen to those guys anymore. If your loved audience still wants to watch you and your hated audience still curious to come back to you, you're winning. And I think those two guys are winning. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here moving forward. I think Ben necessary. I think Candace necessary. I think Tucker necessary. I think all these voices are necessary in a marketplace, and they keep killing it. Okay.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party.
Tulsi Gabbard says she is no longer a Democrat. A potential Tulsi Gabbard VP.
Where we are being told that we just have to comply and go along with whatever they say. American people are smarter than this. However, we must remain vigilant to recognize their propaganda for what it is, pure lie. Unfortunately, we live in a time where free speech is under attack. Whatever they say goes, and we have to just follow. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology. Taking on Kamala Harris on a debate stage before, I would look forward to doing that again.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.